Welcome to Poetry for Dummies, second edition. Sounds like a movie title, right? Poetry for Dummies 2, Release the Kraken. First of all, my name's John Timpane. This starts with a very crazy book that I wrote in 1995, which was called, not my title, It Could Be Verse. Not it couldn't be. But, so this was published by 10-Speed Press, the same people who gave you What Color Is Your Parachute and other books like that, right? They had been tracking the rise of poetry and popular culture in the Bay Area. It was starting to heat up a lot at that time, right, in the mid-90s. And they farsightedly asked around, and do you know if anybody would... So two people that I knew from 10-Speed said, could you write a book about poetry? And I said, could I write a book? No, anyway, I wrote one. I signed a year-and-a-day contract. We got it out the same year. This is a very wild, whooping, swinging book. It's an interview with DR, Dear Reader, and the whole idea is to explain how you can get into poetry if you never thought you could. You know, how can you approach it without anxiety? What is this interpretation deal? How do you do that? You have a bunch of words, you don't know what it means. What's the next step? Now, a lot of the people in this room, not me, but a lot of people in this room are adept at reading a poem and feeling comfortable and understanding it. And so the whole idea in this book, which is highly comic, according to John Timpane, is to just interrogate the whole idea of why you're afraid of poetry. So someone actually read the book. Her name was Maureen Watts, now Marina Watts. And she was an arts advocate in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And she approached Hungry Minds Press, which was then the owner of the Dummies franchise, and said, how about a Poetry for Dummies? I know just the guy. This is all unbeknownst to John. You know, I'm just going around, you know, sort of, you know, making mud pies. But she calls, says, John, you want to do this book? I thought, a Dummies book about poetry, man, that sounds actually pretty good. I'd like to try that. Yeah. So suddenly I'm roped in. Another year-and-a-day contract. I have to have the complete manuscript done in a year and a day, which happened. And all sorts of strange things happen in the meantime. For example, I'm writing the book, working on the book. It's about 11 o'clock at night. Phone rings. Pick it up, and suddenly I'm talking to Lawrence Ferlinghetti. No. Yeah, the beat poet, proprietor of City Lights bookstore in San Francisco, which, if you visited the city and not gone to that store, you are wrong. The next time you go to San Francisco, be right and go to that store and buy something. I mean, they sell Howl in these little, you know, these little booklets. That thing has sold about 5 million copies by now because a lot of people go in the store, feel guilty, and buy it. You know, right? It's a guilt trip. Anyway, here's Lawrence Ferlinghetti. I'm talking to him. The kids are asleep. Christy's still working. And my wife, Christy, is here with us tonight. And she will guide me back to the car afterwards. So, anyway, he says to me, John, I'm calling you to tell you I'm not going to write the introduction for Poetry for Dummies. I didn't know he'd even been asked, right? I'm just the receiver here. Because I can't do that for a book that has both poetry and dummies in the title. I know what you're trying to do. I totally get what you're trying to do, and I love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write you a blurb in which I tell what I really feel, which is, and I paraphrase irresponsibly here, this is a surprisingly intelligent book, which demystifies something that never should have been mystified in the first place. And that's what he said, and that's what he wrote. So things like that happen all along, right? We roped in the Poetry Center of San Francisco State, which is one of the great poetry centers in this great poetry country. They're amazing, lots of resources, and we wrote them in again for number 2 here. And they've been great. They've given me access to all this amazing stuff that has made it such a much better book. So it's me, Maureen, San Francisco State. We get the book out, and life goes on. Strangely, after 26 years, the damn thing sells out. You know, all 12 copies, completely gone. But seriously, I mean, I think 50,000 copies sold, but it wasn't really a rush to the counter. I mean, it's 26 years, yo, you know what I mean? That's, what is that, 20 books a month? I don't know what it is. Anyway, I kind of was aware that it had sold out, but I thought it'll just now fade into the subfusk and, you know, we can move on with our lives. About a year ago, Maureen Watts, now Marina Watts, calls me back. John, are you ready for a second edition? As much out of the blue as the first one was. And I said, so you're asking me, who was 47 when you wrote that first one, and I'm now, you want me to write another edition? And Marina says, yeah, we couldn't think of anyone else, you know, for good reason, I might add. I don't, and it's a tough job. Somebody's got to do it. So the second part is the question, well, what happened in 26 years? What has changed? What has changed in the poetry world? We think of the poetry world as thousands of people who sit in their rooms and write quietly. Nothing could change in a world like that. Well, of course, the poetry world isn't a world like that. And you know this better than I do. It's a very active place. All sorts of stuff is going on. And things have really changed. Think about 1997, which is about the time I started writing the book. In 97, well, Ernest, you started your podcast, Everse Radio. This is Ernest Hilbert. He'll be up very soon. Yay. Great Philly area poet. And, but the poetry world was very active, but it was 1,000 points of light with no network. I mean, really no connection. And you guys know what it was like. You know, you'd stick your poems in an envelope, you'd mail it off, and that was pretty much it, even if you got published. A lot of times, I'd find out years after the fact. Someone said, oh, I saw your poem in Blort Review, you know? I said, what? You know, yeah, no one told me, right? Sometimes you would get copies of the magazine that you got in, right? That was your pay. Sometimes you got bupkis, most of the time, I think. So the connections weren't there. There was no feedback loop. There was no way to, for example, test your poems out in front of an audience unless you wanted to do a live reading. But a lot of people don't want to take that step to test their poetry. You know, so they didn't have what they now call, what? Beta readers. Have you heard of beta readers? That's, yeah, it's a big deal. And that is new. So much is new. From 2000 to 2010, we saw the rise of what I will call the entrepreneurial poet. That is the poet who uses all the tools of social media to make sure that everyone knows what they're doing, what's been going on, the milestones. You know, I got this poem in over here, I'm going to this conference, so forth and so on. Now, a lot of people hate that, and you don't have to do it. But a lot of people, like Ernest again, are very graceful at it and very humane. It doesn't have to be an invidious enterprise. But it's not for everybody. You know, if you think that it's too capitalist, too narcissistic, or just plain irritating, or too much work, it's not for you. You don't have to do it. But a lot of poets now, at least a generation and a half of them, that's what they expect to do. They're coming up expecting to do it. It's their skill set, you know? And it's not so bad. You know, I do it. You guys know that. That's why you're here, you know? You know, I've been floodgating Facebook and book talk, right? You know, and poetry talk, you know all that stuff. So all of that is new. And from 2015 to the present day, we've seen the rise of the online poetry community, right? These are online one-stop shops, which may include any of the following. It may be a publishing venue. It may be a calendar of events, right? Readings near you. It may be, you know, a directory of beta readers. It may be online open mics. It may be all sorts of conferences and roundtables talking about all sorts of things about poetry. And The very first one that was really influential, I think, was something called Literary Hub, which is still going. Not a poetry site, but it was sort of the bellwether for the whole movement. And now you have tons of them, right? You have Maya Popa and the Conscious Writing Collective. You have Tricia Fay. You have, well, we're going to talk about One Art, which is Mark Donowski's joint, and that's a poetry community. And the rise of the poetry community has given poets more connection and more feedback, more opportunities to learn what they're doing and how it strikes people. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a very good thing. The old poetry community was great. It was a little funky, but it was great. And it's still a community driven by real people with real connections, for the most part, which is refreshing. And so all that has happened in the last 26 years, revolutionizing the poetry world. Basically, it's really easy now to do your market research, much easier than it's ever been. It used to be you went to the library and, spent a long time, didn't you? Yes, a long time in the stacks, flipping through, vocabulary review. What does that even mean? You know what I mean? You go through, by the way, that was a really nice journal, I thought. But I only knew about vocabulary review because I went to a library and there it was. In those days, you let your feet do the walking, and then you're figuring. So tonight, having given you the backstory, we're going to have poets come up who are part of this book. Each of the people who are going to come up and read have contributed to Poetry for Dummies in one way or another. One of the things that I tried to do with this revision was give it a Philly taste. So there's a lot of local folks in here celebrating a very poetic town. So let's get to the second part. First of all, I'd like to ask Valerie Fox to come up and read some poems for us.
So both of these I started when I was lucky enough to be traveling last winter. And there's also a weird theme I've noticed, which is my poems have been about being and becoming. This is called You Weren't Even Looking. You weren't even looking, but you found yourself inside the belly of a lute, taking on that shape. Then in your original river and vanishing point, 12 nautical miles. You heard yourself in ambulance calls, real or imagined, in the Cafe Bukowski for pancakes. Later that same day, in how your pen moved, how it wanted to, how it adjusted over time. You went back and tricked yourself into being inside that Flemish painting, one in the primitive style, unsigned. Not observant like gray-faced Christ, but still in all 7 panels. You made your bed, unmade your bed. Heaven be damned, go back, make a door from your own nakedness. Luck gave you eyes to see a midnight traveler steering a canal boat, hauling crates and straw, and one passenger, one chance only. And this one, I was thinking, that expression, you gotta be at the right place at the right time, or, oh crap, I was at the right place at the wrong time.
More often in my case.
So I was thinking, well, what about being at the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time? I started playing around with these phrasings, and this is called being the right fish. I like to be the right question in the wrong space, and the wrong question in the right one. I like to be the right book in the wrong space, and the wrong book in the right space. I like to wear the right clothes in the wrong space, and change to the wrong ones in the right space. I like to spot the right detail in the wrong distance, and the wrong detail in the right distance. To be the right fish in the wrong head, and the wrong fish in the right head. I like to be the right idea in the wrong group, and the wrong idea in the right group. I like being the right drink in the wrong glass, and the wrong drink in the right glass. Holding it up to the light. I like to be the right mixture in the wrong box, and the wrong mixture in the right box. To be the wrong song in the right cafe, and the right cafe in the wrong song. The right sign in the left space, and the wrong one in the labyrinth. I want to be the quiet thing in the loud space, and the loud in the quiet. In the belly, in the mouth. I like to be the fish on the table, the sea in the river, the eating in the waiting, the wings in the word. I want to be the right thing in the right city, then the wrong. Like America, or like this place. When the sea, the river, the wings, the space, the head, or the idea are not right, there isn't much we can do anyway. But wouldn't it be wrong not to try?
Okay, so, by the way, something that Valerie said reminded me, the other day I was on the bus, and I passed by, there was this guy who was taking stuff out of the trunk of his car, and on the back of his t-shirt were 3 words: beer, bourbon, Dukowski. Okay, so anyway, and so this poem, my Fibonacci poem, was based on my high school math teacher, Mr. Gallagher, who commented that the reason that time seems to be going faster is that each year is a smaller, was a portion of your life. Like, when you're a baby, it's 1. And so on and so forth. I'll let you do the math. Okay, that's the way it goes. First, we have no age at all. Then we're 1. In another year or 2, we are 2, then 3. As our, goodness, as our stumbling gets a bit steadier, suddenly we are 5, and an entire hand that we look at and wonder. Let's skip the first few grades, because when we are 8, we have begun to discover novels on library shelves. And not long after, we're teens. Then then we're old enough to drink, which we do on the first opportunity. Some of us. The hangover lasts until we're 34, which is not quite some time for midlife crises, though some manage. 55 is one's prime. Yeah. But we know then we'll soon be 89. The reason I say that 55 is a prime is because of a black and white British movie that my parents loved with Alec Guinness. You see he's the captain of the ship who goes back and forth. And his wife says something dismissive to him, and he says, "My dear, I am 52, which is in my prime." Okay? All right, so anyway, going back to beginnings, from the very first, what do you call this, open poetry reading I ever was at, as soon as I mention it, music comes. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so anyway,
This is amazing.
from the street. Okay, anyway, okay. Okay. I originally wrote this as being a very kind of like despairing sort of poem. And then when I read this at the open poetry reading, the place burst with laughter. So what it taught me is that the way for me to write humorous poetry is to write tragic poems. All right. So you can see what you think. You can see what you think, which way you go. My plants die, whether from lack of sunlight, water, or human voices, they die. They droop like tired horses at a dry water hole. The leaves fall off one by one like the possessions of a Russian peasant on a sled chased by wolves. The stalks stay, stragglers, dragging like the burghers of Calais, ragged survivors. So I'll let you cry in your beer. Okay, thank you.
In running one of these joints, are you just like always doing it? Are you always working at it? Speak into the microphone so we can see you. Please.
By always doing it, do you mean do I take days off?
Yes.
No.
I mean, there's so much to do, because when I go to your website, there's all these buttons I can push to find out all sorts of things. And I'm thinking, he has to curate all of those. This is not just one thing, it's like 7 things at once. You know, so no, you don't sleep, you don't do anything but that, right?
Yeah, no, that's my whole personality.
But of course he's lying, because he's going to read us some poems that he's written. So everybody, Mark Danowski.
Whoa, I mean, John Payne, incredible. I have to say, you know, people tell me that they like my hosting, but John is just crushing it. It's unbelievable. He is just showing off his level of learnedness. Anyway, regular Carol Bloom in the best sense. All right, so this is actually kind of a newer poem. And, you know, be nice, because remember, I'm sort of editor first and writer second. So, okay. My most insane friend tells me how to live my life. You have had this happen to you. Nothing is going right in your world, and the person first in line to say, "Hold on, I have the answer," is inevitably the person least qualified to inform anyone how best to live. But you remember to be kind and bite your tongue, since there was a time, not even that long ago, that you were the friend gone wrong, all too ready to weigh in with your misguided monologue about how the world works and how each person finds their way. Friends, we all have to learn the hard lesson. You cannot save anyone who will not save themselves. I'll just do one more.
Please.
So this is, I don't know, it's a darling poem, which, I don't know, did that come up in the book? Let's see. But I have, you know, we all have, it's kind of like guilty pleasure music, but, which is a whole different conversation. But I think poets, we have these poems that we love and that we send them out, and then other people don't love them and we don't understand, and it makes us sad. Okay, so, but then you get up in front of people and you're like, you know what, it's an opportunity, so I'm gonna read it. Okay. So this is Praise for the Burro. You know, you can picture a burro, little donkey. Okay. Praise for the burro. Praise for the burro, said present only as companion to the much-loved stallion. Praise for the burro who does not lift his head as your car passes the muddy field just beyond the wire fence line. Praise for the burro who eats what is provided, who plops through every ask without expectation of thanks. Praise for the burro who knows his secret well, who gives more than needs. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be in the book. What appears in the book, aside from some social media posts that I have, is a poster that we had made. Okay, good. So if you want to, I don't know how well you can see that. Small. That's very small. Okay, well this is just, okay.
It was this big.
So,
you had to shrink it. It couldn't fit the book.
So the occasion was, speaking of Emily Wilson, so my friend, no, she wasn't the occasion. So my friend Alicia Stallings, who lives in Greece.
One of our greats. I mean,
she's amazing. So she was going to be in town to do a colloquium with Emily over at Penn on the Odyssey and traditions of the Odyssey and ways it was used in literature and film. And I thought, well, if she's coming to town, which is rare, because usually if she comes to the United States, it's going to be New York or someplace like that. Not usually Philadelphia. we should show her some courtesy and hospitality. So I set up a reading at Head House Books downtown, just off South Street, and a comic book artist named Patrick McEwen I work with on things, he goes by Ink Puddle Pat, decided he wanted to do a little poster to commemorate the event. So it shows like the front of Head House. It was around Halloween, so there's a little pumpkin and clouds. And people loved it. And so Alicia signed all of those, and we gave them out to commemorate that evening so people would remember the night that they were there for that. Because often we have these wonderful evenings and they sort of just drift into the past, and it's easy to forget. But I look at old posters for concerts or poetry readings, and it just is evocative. It conjures, the reading at the Six Gallery in San Francisco when Howell was first read. Woodstock, right? A festival of art and music, right? It just conjures that. So I like producing things that people can take home to remember the night they were there. So he generously includes 2 stanzas of the 4 total stanzas of my poem, We Make Mountains So We May Move Them, from my book Storm Swimmer. So I will read that, and I have these posters that Pat made. So it's based on an Edward Gorey series that he did on the alphabet, and so it has things that are referred to in the poem. Here's Tolstoy's Cossacks. This is Highway 51 Revisited. There are my reading glasses. Look, they're actually, can you see my reading glasses? That's my house in West Philadelphia. So it's wonderful. So I have these in a variety of colors, teal, fuchsia, mustard, I think this is. And I would love it if people would come and take one when they leave. I even have cardboard tubes so you don't have to walk around holding this all night. And it has a full description of what it is on the back. So I thought this would dovetail nicely. You were talking about, I don't like the term entrepreneurial because it's not about, I'm not making any money doing it. It's purely love. You definitely don't get into poetry for the money. But this is an example of things that you can do. It cost me just the cost of the paper, and we printed it up at work. So that's how it got done. So we just did it because we liked it. It doesn't cost really anything. So this is a poem called We Make Mountains So We May Move Them. In Tolstoy's Cossacks, all around, snow, and a pebble sun brightening for miles. It's one of my November books, filled at its start with white and cold. Today, sun lights up the house. Soon, we'll have snow too. Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited in the speakers jangles as it did half a century ago. My wife dangles our baby till he squeals, both nearly strangled with laughter, and I take off my glasses to watch them. He wants to fly and never be put down. We will one day be stars above a storm, as we were once diamonds in the ocean, tiny, tough parts of the world that flicker and descend and give up all our light. Thank you. So there are 26 lettered copies. I took one home, Pat has one, and that means we probably have 24. In a variety, whatever your favorite color is, I'll have it. Come take it, please. I also have tubes you can put them in. Okay, so I'm going to read a second poem. I was invited to read 2. Right? This is a sonnet, so it won't take very long. So this is my second book, All of You on the Good Earth, and the publisher recently was clearing out some of their stock, and so I wound up with another shelf of these. So I have a bunch with me that I'm happy to give to anyone who would like one. If you like the poem or you're curious, please come and take one from me before you leave the building. Because usually the comedians come up and chase us out, right? So I think 9 o'clock we start getting comics, and they're much more serious about the room than you'd think. So this is called, I don't know if anyone here has any books at home, but it's a contentious issue in my life because I have far too many books. And My wife says, it's not that I hate them, I just don't know where we're supposed to put them all. I'm like, yeah, I get it. And so this is called Cover to Cover. And the epigraph is from Walter Benjamin. Every passion borders on the chaotic, but the collector's passion borders on the chaos of memories. I don't collect them, they just accumulate, tower higher into shoddy columns, climbing weirdly like crystal formations or pillars of coral. The thought of their weight crushes. Their coarse traffic of wars I've thumbed through, their long summers and snow. They weigh tons. They slide onto the stove, under the fridge, into the tub. They prop open windows, serve as coasters. They have traveled with me and slept beside me. They fashion a bridge to vanished rooms, sorrows, and suns. Lord knows why I haul them from city to city. I slip them together like bricks. They become a wall. My greed, my fears, everything. Nothing at all.
Thank you for the opportunity to be included in this book. It's really an honor. I also wanted to share how I'm included in the book. John was so kind to share one way to be included in a poetry community, and that would be at your local library, right? So I've been running a poetry group at our local library in Montgomery County called the Indian Valley Public Library for 35 years.
35 years.
The first Saturday of every month. And every Saturday that I go, I wonder if anyone will show up, and they always do. I can't believe it.
That is such a great bunch.
Oh, I know.
It's a
John
great
was there.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to share one thing I'm very proud of at the library. So with each Saturday that we meet, the first Saturday of every month, I'll invite like a special guest poet. And when they come, I ask them to bring all of their books. And then I buy all of their books. And then I donate them to the library. So the poetry section has a collection of local authors. And it's really cool. It's really cool. I always take everyone back there, and like I could talk about it for hours, and I won't do that here, I promise. But it's really fun to like go back and see like collections from people that you know. When I started writing, I guess like 30 years ago, I didn't really know who was writing, or like John said, things weren't easy. You couldn't find like places or people to write with. And I didn't know what to do or where to go. And I went to my library and I was like, I'd like to sign up for a poetry group. And they're like, we don't have one. And I said, can I start one? And they said, sure. So a week later, I was on the front page of the Souderton Independent. Fast forward, I have 2 sonnets I'll share. They're 13-line sonnets. I call them the Lost Line Sonnet, because the last line is a tribute to someone very special. Reading a map. Fall River, Smith Mills, New Bedford, Freetown, a slow drive into charcoal blue, Silver Beach, ethereal gray gables, frozen creek, flying horses carousel. The wind was whipping along the coast, and you were West Chop, bent at the hip. Your arms cradled dozens of conch shells, and I was East Chop, my arms full of shells too. We were a mile apart, but still so connected. Looking back, I think that sea air whipping and shells falling from our arms were a kind of map, a way of wandering we understood. Heaven Heights, Pie in the Sky Bakery.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. I want to share something I am so proud of. This one was published in One Art, a journal of poetry by the famous Mark Danowski.
I know him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Mark, that guy.
I couldn't believe it. What a professional organization. I mean, really, it is awesome. I highly recommend you try. And I was afraid to submit. I like to write. I get hurt when someone doesn't like receive my stuff, right? Like, and it makes me not want to do it anymore. But Mark kept like keeping up, you know, like your heart emoji and like right back, and he was so patient with me. So here's this one. It's called Daily Routine in Lansdale. Epigraph by Joy Harjo. Remember, you are all people and all people are you. Remember the bed beneath your body, the arrival of dawn, how peach color reveals and illuminates the good sky, how the reliable sun is mercy. Remember how you walk on maple wood floors, how the spirit goes along with you. Remember your mornings alone, the way you remember the cat, how he adores your lap. Remember your daily work, how you step up. Remember your voice, use it. How green shoots start to show in early spring, and the hardened earth under the feeder crumbles when you cross the yard. Remember. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to give you a little reference point of my life in poetry. I didn't start writing poetry until I was 60. Most of my life was spent as an advocate for children abused and neglected. But my first poem, I was out of work. And I was back in Philly, had escaped from a very crazy person in Lancaster, and I was living with him, and I ironed mostly all of my own shirts. So I was ironing the shirt all by myself in the basement, and I was meditating about the beauty of ironing the shirt. And so after I did that, I wrote a poem about it, and I said, geez, this is wonderful. It's a wonderful experience. And I just kept on doing it for 23 years. John Champagne, he was among my first guests, on the very first Philly Loves Poetry 10 years ago. He was on with Natalie Anderson, Leonard Gontarek, and Kamika Williams.
Yes, Kamika Williams, yes.
And it was a really terrific show. And after that, most of my shows were kind of thematic shows. And then now, since the pandemic, most of them have all been kind of a single poet where I can really zero in on their work and have a nice discussion for about a half an hour and then let them read their poems. And I've had some of them are here. Some of them are here and they've been on a couple of times. But, you know, people will say, well, 10 years, is there a memorable show? And I have to tell you there was. And I don't know if you know the name of Huda Frakhlin. She's a teacher at Penn, Arabic studies, and her husband is Ahmad Amara, and both of them are Palestinian. And so she, on my show, read in Arabic Ahmad's English poems. And I was so touched, and I never get that moved, that after the show I had to go in the bathroom and cry. Because I never heard a language and a translation so beautiful. And if you ever get a chance, and she's on YouTube and she's on Facebook. Her name is Huda Frakalim, and she's wonderful. But I've had so many wonderful people. I just want to, when people ask me, was there a great experience? It really was. Since we're writing about poetry and dummies, I want to talk about my dummy. I call him my muse. The poem is titled My Muse. It is never me. It is always something that he has borrowed from the world. A world that is the result of language. He dries words out of my overfed brain. Most of the thinking has happened before my pen meets the page. Whatever words you believe you own are his. He uses me as he pleases. He has borrowed this sentence. There is more wilderness in you than in nature. It is another borrowed thought that keeps me on my toes. A borrowed pronouncement. And it is with sentences like these that he creates an image of me. His function is to function for me, a function as a reenactment of the world he sees that I live in. Function as interpretations, interruptions, and interventions. He finds a place for me to sit down, and this is the only way I am humanly possible. He says the crow, butterfly, Juneberry will come to be my relatives. Says trees speak, share their ideas just beneath me. Says the moon will carry thoughts into the sky until those thoughts are the moon's thoughts. Those will be a gift to the darkness. Says watch the little victories of the clouds in their constant splendor, bending stems of the bamboo in a prayer pose, shading our gardens, devotionals, cardinales, black-eyed Susan, and herbs. Sniffs a flower for its innocence, he urges. See the chaos of bees, gold and purple bodies, weaving a brocade scarf. Crickets in the sawgrass. Hum of summer. Listen. One of my most famous guests was Paul Muldoon, and he was just so gracious. And he's been really great for Philly, and he's been great for Moonstone because he's been here, and he's been at another place. I'm trying to think of Venice Island for a reading that somebody brought him down. And I asked him, I said, how did you get Paul Muldoon? He said, well, I just went up for a reading in Princeton, and I asked him. I said, sure, I'll come down. And that's the way he was with me. But one of the things I try to do in advance of my shows is to research my guest. As they've given interviews, I like to find out more information on them. And he had a line talking about his classes in poetry. He had this line about, I tell my students, you gotta begin with ignorance. And I found that line again in a Estonian poet by the name of Jan Kaplinsky. He ended a poem with that. And so this poem is called A Particular Sort of Ignorance. How friendless the world can be to poets, even though they make a life act like flowers, drawing us away beyond the unknown absence of what we do not, the life of dust, long of things to be something else before color, catching us wandering in the dark night, sea, sky, in a seven-colored robe, hands that grasp stars, bird songs running like chinks of light, making wings, bring the mountains closer. Entering the eye, the moon rushing above the roar of the world, tracking the rubbish of mankind's footprints on the earth, far from the world's mockery, making water tremble, nature's laments, opening the trapdoor of memory summoning heaven here for questioning, with dreams traveling great distances to reach us, like letters from a forgotten friend from long ago. The soul of a time summoned to those bewildered who have been kept waiting. The paltry fame of the poet, to be let go, disappear, drops of their pain ready to drink, never enough. A love that never dies with their body. Thank you.
It's going to be Love 3 by George Herbert, who was born in 1593 and died at the age of 40 in 1633. So he overlaps a little bit with Shakespeare. And to set this poem up, this poem is a conversation where a guest comes in for dinner, and the guest wants the host, who's called Love, wants the guest to sit down, but the guest does not feel worthy. So they have a conversation about it. And the whole crux of the poem is to get the guest to understand that he doesn't have to be perfect to be worthy to sit down. So there's a religious underpinning here. There's a doctrinal underpinning. So you can think of love as the deity, right? As Jesus, if you want. You could also think of it as a poem about sex, about the nature of being worthy is in part accepting the fact that you are. It's a really tough poem to get your head all around the first time, but I think you'll like a lot of it. By the way, it's very clear. Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack from my first entrance in, drew nearer to me, sweetly questioning if I lacked anything. A guest I answered worthy to be here. Love said, you shall be he. I, the unkind, the ungrateful, ah, my dear, I cannot look on thee. Love took my hand, and smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I? Truth, Lord, but I have marred them. Let my shame run from the police. Let me wait for a moment, because it was just getting good there. I hope they catch him. Truth, Lord, I'll back up to. Love took my hand and smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I? Truth, Lord, but I have marred them. Let my shame go where it doth deserve. And know you not, says Love, who bore the blame. My dear, then I will serve. You must sit down, says Love, and taste my meat. So I did sit and eat. It says so much in such a small place. So, there's all sorts of things. The love poems, I just love the love poems. Since I was talking about Sappho, here goes fragment 31. Seems to me godlike, that man who sits near you, and you close, speaking sweetly. He listens intently, and you laughing, charming, truly, compels my heart to quake in my chest. For whenever, even a moment, I glimpse you, no words. My tongue has broken. Lightning has run beneath my skin. I see nothing. Rushing takes my ears. I run with sweat. Trembling seizes all me. I am greener than grass, and to myself, little short of dying, I seem.